Well, welcome back to another episode of the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your friends cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am, of course, joined by my fabulous co-host, Christy.
Hi, Lake. How are you?
Doing all right. A little bit tired. Been one of those days.
Yes. I don't think that we really had an expectation of recording tonight. I mean, we definitely didn't. And
No,
then...
Are we on? Oh, I wanted to say we're on 3 in a row, but we did. We recorded 2 days ago. I spent all day yesterday editing episodes.
Oh,
so for me, it's like 3
days.
days. And we have one tomorrow.
Yep. It's a week of podcasting. Usually it's Steve and I having 85 recordings in a week. And now it's Lake and I. It's perfect. But we have early 2025 itineraries.
We do. And we've got a couple interesting things here. I think this is probably, I want to say, the most vanilla one we've had in a while. We've got one ship shakeup, I'm going to call it.
I like that.
And then a couple kind of interesting little tidbits here that are changing. But otherwise, yeah, it is a pretty simple breakdown here. Yes. There's not a whole lot of we're going here, then we're going there, and then we're going up, back, south, west, east, north.
Right. There's a little, we're going to put on our thinking caps too, to decide some future cruise stuff based upon this release. So we'll get into that and towards the end of the show as well.
Yeah, but we are talking about early 2025 itineraries. Some of these itineraries we have actually seen already. Looking at you, Treasure.
Yep. So the Treasure hasn't changed. Obviously, she's doing her 7-night Eastern and Western alternating weeks. She's doing that. We have her schedule from, well, really December through the end of May. And that's what this release covers, the January through May timeframe. And so she's already out. Nothing's new there. Anybody can book those dates at any time. But then the rest of these will all be for future bookings that will start on Monday. And we'll go through those dates at the end.
Yeah. So do we want to just start at the beginning of this and talk about the Magic, the OG, the ship that Steve is currently sailing on right as we speak? He is enjoying the Magic for the first time out of San Diego.
For the first time. No, the Magic is it the first time?
I think so. I think it's always been the Wonder, right?
I think you're right. Somebody will correct us. I apologize. The West Coast has never been like, I guess it has been because that's who would go up and down the coast. And as we know, the Wonder has just arrived today in Australia, in Sydney. And they had some tropical storms. They had to divert, and actually the Dream right now was diverting tropical storms over in the East Coast, New York area. And not that it's related to early 2025, but that sailing is diverted now. This next sailing that's coming up is no longer going to Bermuda. It is now going to Canada. So all these Canadians left Canada and to go back into Canada. But it happens during hurricane season.
That's got to be some fun time at the service desk.
Yes. Yes. So Disney Magic. It is going to mostly be in Galveston for the beginning of the year. Something notable is there is no New Orleans sailings this year. So if you were interested in sailing out of New Orleans, you need to jump on a ship 2024 so that you can go down.
I just got all that New Orleans experience and could have talked all about all the great places to go and eat.
Well, you will, because 2024, there's still a ship there going Magic, I believe, that's going to be in New Orleans. So, yeah.
Which is also funny because we hyped up the synergy with the Wonder for so long. And then they were like, oh, never mind. Yeah. We're going to send you down under.
I have more songs. Every comments just make me want to sing. Okay, so Disney Magic. She's doing 4 through 7 night sailings in Galveston. There is, I believe, just 1 week that is a 7 night sailing, and that one actually ends in Puerto Rico. But the rest of the, at least as far as I can see so far, the rest of the Magic sailings are like 4 to 6 nights round trip, stopping in Mexico. Something to note for those sailings, they do not stop and at Castaway Key. It's too far. And so you just have to, because like every other ship is either going to go to Lighthouse Point or Castaway. The ships out of Galveston do not. So unless you are doing the 7 night cruise, which actually stops at both Castaway and Lighthouse Point, on its way to San Juan. But typically it would not do that. So just keep that in mind when you're booking that sailing. And then I don't think there's anything else really to know. I guess maybe that there's
Magic's kind of all over the place, actually.
Right. Because after she does that, tell the listeners what happens to her next.
So after San Juan, the Magic, it has a 4-night repositioning from San Juan to Fort Lauderdale. And that is a Lighthouse Point, Nassau day at sea sailing. And then it's going to spend a couple weeks here in Fort Lauderdale. And then after that, it's actually going to transition again up to Port Canaveral. No?
She is like seriously getting around.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna. You shook your head no, and I was like, wait,
no.
I'm not wrong.
That's why
here.
I was shaking my head, right? Because she's going to everywhere. And I would just like to point out that Liz is listening. I don't know why I'm showing this because only the people listening right now and the Patreons can see this, but Liz is listening from work. And Liz, Lake is wearing your shirt, the shirt you made us for our wish sailing.
I am, yes.
So that's fun. Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a repositioning sailing there. Like it's taking a few days and then it's going up to Port Canaveral because it's got a May 2nd 4-night from Fort Lauderdale, which would bring us. Would that bring us to the 6th or the 7th then?
2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. You get off on the 6th.
Okay. And then it starts on the 7th out of Port Canaveral. So it's just like taking a day it drops people off and I guess just takes that next day to get up there.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, isn't it's like, a couple hours. Really no big deal. That's just interesting that they didn't like reposition or anything.
Oh, right. Because people aren't getting off there. But that's tricky to do. And so I can understand that in the same like Florida port action I didn't really pay attention to that yet, but to not have it go to 2 different ports within Florida, that is causes logistical issues, if you ask me. So I'm guessing that's why they did that.
Fly into Miami, go up, get dropped off at Port Canaveral, and then you go and do your Disney trip.
Which only works if you're flying.
Also true. Does not work if you drive.
Exactly. Otherwise your car's
But anyways, yeah, so then it is covering a little bit of a stint in Port Canaveral that we will get into here shortly.
Oh, we could get into it now.
We can
stick with her. Let's just finish her off. She does 4 nights going to Lighthouse Point, and then there is 1 4-night in May that actually. So there's only 2 of those, but the one goes to Castaway, so you could do a double dip on the Magic from Port Canaveral. So that's something to note. And then the rest of her sailings.
She's got some 5 nights in there that go to Lighthouse Point and Castaway.
So that's
a pretty nice sailing.
And something to note is it looks like there's going to be 2 ships in Port Canaveral on Fridays. I didn't pay attention to the Magic dates to see what overlap there is, but so I guess they're opening up another, they're doing more port work, not really sure. But there's going to have to be 2 berths for Disney Cruise Line in Port Canaveral because there's going to be 2 ships. leaving
So when the
and coming.
Magic's there, it's kind of all over the place. It's got some Tuesdays, a Sunday.
I do like how they're utilizing more days at that port. So that gives people more opportunities to sail based upon what works for their schedule. So I like that too.
Yeah, it is interesting. It'll be interesting to see, again, how they handle the multiple ships there.
And then, go on.
They did previously, we had that announced expansion like forever ago. And then we just like never really saw anything come from that. So maybe we're finally going to see that, or we're just going to maybe hopefully see them revamp one of the terminals around that some of the other cruise lines use.
Yeah, I mean, I
think
hope
that's the more likely option.
I hope they do something, because it will be disappointing for whatever ship isn't walking through, like if you're cruising from Port Canaveral, because you understand if you're cruising from another port. But if you're cruising from Port Canaveral, it is special to walk through the Mickey ears. Something to note is that the Disney Magic ends her sailing in early 2025 on a May 30th cruise from Port Canaveral. So that's very much at the end of the season. So unlikely that she will be going to Europe. So let's go next to the Dream, because, let's just go to the Wish really quick. So there's always the one sort of easy, kind of boring itinerary. And not to say that the Wish is boring, but she's just doing her 3 and 4 nights out of Port Canaveral. There are a couple of sailings, one from on a 3-night sailing that's doing a sea day instead of a day at Nassau. So that's really great, because to get a 3-night cruise and have a sea day, I think, is an advantage. She's out cruising, and that is on April 25th. And then there's really nothing else to note.
Nothing too exciting.
Oh, there is one more. There is one exciting. The Disney Wish has one sailing.
One Lighthouse Point. I am seeing that now.
January 27th, where she's stopping at Lighthouse Point and Castaway. That's going to be a very popular sailing, if you ask me. I mean, I guess, like, depending on if you're a person who has to take off work and take off school, Monday through Friday is always tough. End of January. But you can check out Lighthouse Point and the Wish all at the same time on a shorter sailing. So that'll be exciting for that. Now let's go.
It's about as cool as the Disney Wish sailing gets.
Yeah, for real. Now let's go to the Disney Dream. The Disney Dream. So she starts her season in Fort Lauderdale, and her season is in Fort Lauderdale. She's got 4 and 5 night sailings.
And 3.
And okay. There was like one.
She's got the whole shebang going on. 3, 4, 5. She's doing all sorts of things.
She does have, there is a 4-night, mostly her sailings are going to go, there's a lot of these Lighthouse Point sailings on her 4 nights. And then there is a one-off, again, there's 2 of them that are going to Castaway instead of Nassau. So you could do a double dip on that. I love, and I don't know what we're going to call these, but I am loving all these double dip opportunities if people want to get to Lighthouse Point and Castaway. And I don't hate that they're not really long cruises. So this way you really can, and because there's some different sailing dates, you really can take off for just a part of a weekend, right? Or a weekend and a couple of days, and really get to see these ports. I love that. I love that for us. So she's got go on.
I was just going to say, while we're still not getting necessarily variety in the actual ports, we are getting a lot of options, having more ships, especially at this time where we've got 4 ships all over in the same area right now.
Yeah, these ports are going to be busy. So then her 5-night cruise from Fort Lauderdale also there's a bunch of those sailings, and they go to Castaway and to Lighthouse Point. plus have a day at sea, and then you stop at Nassau. And then she does have some 5 nights doing the Western Caribbean. So like an equal number to her 5 night going to the Bahamian Islands, but her 5 nights doing Western Caribbean, stopping at Cozumel, Castaway, and then 2 days at sea. I think that's all that is of interest.
How early does, or how late does the Dream go? What's the Dream's latest?
May 30th.
May 30th.
Yep. The last sailing is May 30th, which is the 3 night from Fort Lauderdale.
So we would potentially expect after that, maybe. Well, nope. Let's go and talk about the fantasy here.
Let's talk about the fantasy.
Some speculation. Fantasy's got all sorts of things going on. This is definitely, well, the actual itineraries are kind of more the same.
Right.
This is the biggest change that we've seen for the fantasy. We saw a little bit in the last release of some of this coming up with the anticipation of the Wish. And now we're seeing kind of the actual rotation that the fantasy seems to be following here, at least until whatever shakeup we may have for the summer 2025 itineraries.
Yeah, so I believe most of her sailings are 4 and 5 night. Oh, she's got 1 3 night. One little 3 night that does Castaway and a day at sea. So that's kind of nice to have a weekend cruise. She leaves most of the time on either Sunday or, well, she does have Sundays and Fridays and Wednesdays. So those are going to be her departure dates, which, can work to try to fit into some people's schedules. And then she's got quite a few of the 4 night and the 5 night sailings that are doing both Lighthouse Point and Castaway. And then the 5 nights are also doing the day at sea in Nassau. And the 4 nights are doing the day at sea, except for like a sailing. That's like, there's 2 sailings. That's a one-off that maybe is a disadvantage because there's a couple of the fantasy sailings for the 4 night where she's going to stop at Nassau instead of Castaway. So just look that up. And then I guess just note, if you're looking like any day almost, the thing that's great about this schedule is it really like runs the gamut of what available dates you might have to sail. Maybe not the most interesting ports for most of them, but at least you're getting a lot of opportunities to see Lighthouse Point and see Castaway. The thing with those 2 is to keep in mind, they're going to be way cheaper cruises for your pocketbook for the most part because you're not spending a bunch of money on port excursions. So you might spend some money on port excursions, but I feel like the Caribbean ports are typically way more port excursion intense versus a day at the beach.
I feel like they've got a lot of competition within themselves with all of these like overlapping. Like that's a lot of ships to have sailing very similar itineraries.
Very similar. I'm very curious how they're going to do, and so many short sailings that they really are going to have to turn these over. I really actually think that this is going to be a opportunity for people who are interested in sailing concierge to get into it at a little bit more of a reasonable price because they have so many short sailings. And then obviously if you were interested in a cabana, it's your easiest opportunity to get one is if you're in concierge. And so it's not guaranteed anymore because there's still more people, more cabins than cabanas, but it does give you more of an opportunity. And because there's these shorter sailings, it gives you those opportunities. And then the other thing is it gives you the opportunity to pick your ship. Like, what ship do you want to be on? And you could basically go, if you want to go to the Bahamas, on practically any ship from, one of these 2 ports. So you either want a Dream class or the Triton class. You have some opportunities to really pick your ship and your ship class to get down to those ports if those are of interest to you.
Yeah, definitely quite a bit of options going on here. Hopefully, we'll see some resident rates come back with all these options. Cross our
Yes.
fingers.
And I know some cast member friends that are looking for cast rates, and probably obviously the same for travel agents as well. So
I do like the quantity of 5 nights. I feel like 5 nights is a really nice length. Like it's
it,
not quite the commitment or price of, a 7 or an 8 night sailing, but it's not quite the 3 or 4 where you get settled and you're like, all right, time to go.
yep, I agree totally.
Like our 5 night on the Magic that we did, I think that was 2 years ago now. It was like one of my favorite Disney cruises that we've done.
You can really relax. You can really like lean into it. And I guess that's the one thing about all these beach vacations is if you like a beach vacation, but you really can have that opportunity, sort of relax, get off and do your run. Hopefully we'll be able to do that at Lighthouse Point. And then just again, relax and really take advantage of what the ship offers.
Absolutely. Do we move into the White Whale?
Yes.
All right. So this is probably the most interesting sailings, but it's nothing necessarily surprising.
Yes.
So we are going to have the Wonder returning from Australia. So we're going to be starting off with a 15-night South Pacific cruise starting in Sydney and ending in Honolulu. That is on February 10th. And you have 9 days at sea on that, which is monstrous.
It's so fun.
Yeah, that is crazy. But then right after that, it goes into a 9-night Hawaiian cruise, which is also a pretty coveted cruise for Disney Cruise Line.
It only has 2 stops, but I mean, I think that's normal. And it does overnight. So.
Yes. And then from there, it does end in Vancouver. And then from Vancouver, we've got a Pacific Coast cruise going on, going from Vancouver down towards San Diego to reposition. You do get a stop in Victoria, which is kind of a cool little port there. And then you get 3 days at sea. Kind of surprising they didn't try to sneak in like any sort of...
Like San Francisco.
Yes.
Or... Mm-hmm. And then it's going to be a freezing cold cruise. Like the entertainment staff are really going to have to work extra hard on that cruise because she leaves Vancouver on March 5th. And then it's just going to be a very cold cruise. I don't think there are going to be very many people in the pool.
Yeah, no, not at all. And then we've got some classic Mexico cruises, some Baja Californian cruises, Mexican Riviera. We got 2 7-nights. We've got 4 nights, and then a handful of 3 nights as well, going out of San Diego. We do have the Catalina Island sailings returning, which seem to be pretty popular right now.
Yep. Unfortunately, the people that are just getting off of the Wonder Magic, the Magic today, didn't get Catalina Island because the weather wasn't good. So that's obviously something to just keep in mind. That can always happen with ports. But there is a possibility that you might just get another sea day.
Absolutely. And then from there, it does have one more Pacific Coast cruise heading back up to Vancouver, more than likely to start summer Alaskan sailings. And that
Correct.
is May 8th.
Yep.
And that one does not stop at Victoria, though. It's just a straight 4-night sailing with 3 sea days.
That's so crazy. So another one where it just seems like the Wonder is going to really have to work on their indoor activities for all these cruises. But I guess 9 days at sea, they're already on that.
That the Pacific Coast one going back up is kind of a cool one if you want to like tag that on before that first Alaskan sailing.
Yeah, for sure.
You're like 3 days of relaxation and nicer weather before you go up, and it's cold, rainy, but also a lot of action and excursions.
You can work on adjusting to your time change on the ship. So that'll be exciting. Like that's easier to do. if you're coming from the East Coast. So now there's one last big question mark speculation, and that is as it relates back to the fantasy, which I feel like nobody saw coming. So the fantasies sailings, everybody else sort of ends in May. Obviously, May 8th is an earlier one for the Wonder, but she's ending in Vancouver. So clearly she's just going into her Alaskan sailings. But the Fantasy's last cruise is May 1st, that I can tell. And she has a 3-night, which means that she has nothing going on for transatlantic season.
It's kind of interesting that we just saw them transition to the Dream, and then we're potentially seeing them transition to the Fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't like really matter all that much. It's just we've had so much consistency for so long. It is interesting that we've got all these different shakeups now going.
Yeah. So if the Fantasy is your favorite ship, you know, maybe she gets a dry dock in there, and maybe she goes, I don't know if she's going to have a dry dock. Actually, people just leave that as it is. But then maybe she goes, she's likely, because there's nobody left. They're not going to wait till June to send a ship to Europe.
Especially
so
when it takes you 13 nights to get there.
Yeah, exactly. 14, maybe 13.
So more than likely that's going over there, though. It seems like the Dream is kind of gonna make its home in Fort Lauderdale, and it's probably just gonna chill there for a very long time, I would imagine.
And I wonder if they're gonna bring back next fall, or this 2025 fall, if they'll bring back the Canadian and Bermuda cruises and things like that from New York, so that, because there isn't any in 2024, so maybe, you know, the Dream will go up and do that, but who knows, really? Could be anybody. So that's it. That's exciting. And I guess this answers the question, because there were definitely some crew member rumors, although it doesn't fully answer the question, because the Dream could still be doing something. One of our, Doug, has just answered or responded. The Dream had a big dry dock at the end of, or has a big dry dock at the end of Europe next year. So maybe the Fantasy will do the same dry dock at the end of the European season. Yeah.
Interesting.
She needs a little work. She's a little bouncy.
Sure,
I love her.
wonderful.
She's my favorite, but she's a little bouncy. So there were all these crew member rumors that perhaps a big ship was going to go to Alaska in 2025. It's clearly not the Fantasy now. I mean, it could, but that would be silly for her to end her season.
That would be a long time. Like, they'd be
before
missing
she'd
out, right?
get there. Yeah, because they'd have to do the Panama Canal cruise, and then so it makes more sense. And we don't have anybody to go to Europe, so she has to go to Europe. So she's the logical choice for Europe. But then I guess the question is, are they going to put a big ship in Alaska? So listen, we know we have, well, not 2025 year. We have sleuthy listeners. So what I need our sleuthy listeners to do is, when it gets later in the season, when they start to have berths, which they already are starting, because other cruise lines are always way further in their releases. Look at the berth sizes, the ship sizes for the berths in Alaska, and let us know if there's going to be 2 Disney ships there, because there are people that like to check this stuff out that are listeners. So we are asking you, and then just report back and let us know.
Some of them post their calendars too.
Exactly.
Like, what's the little place that Norwegian owns that we just went? Icy Strait Point.
Mm-hmm.
They just straight post a calendar, and they're like, "This is the day that these ships are here." Now
I don't
Disney
know that they do
only
that.
Goes there like twice a year.
Yeah. So, and you know, the thing about a big ship being in, which we are a whole season off from having this Alaska discussion, but a thing about the big ship being in Alaska is that they miss out on the inside passage.
Yep.
And there's sometimes they have to park further back. So it's not all.
As someone who just did a sailing in Alaska on a ship that's a similar size to the Dream of Fantasy, I would go small ship next time.
Because Alaska is the destination, not the ship. And so it is good. Like, I think if you have teenagers and people that need, or even maybe other kids that need to be entertained, or people that need to be entertained by the ship, but Alaska should be the entertainment. So, but back to this, early 2025. Bookings start. Let me pull this up. I guess any other comments you have to make, Lake?
No, I'm good. Let's talk about these bookings.
Bookings start October 30th, and that is for Pearl. So those of you who've already completed 25 sailings. And then next up, we have on the 31st on Halloween. It's kind of cruel. And these all start at 8 a.m. You can call at that time. You can go online. You will, and by the way, you will need your Castaway Club number. So if you are looking to book, first of all, please use a travel agent. They shouldn't cost you extra, or if they do, they're providing a different service. So talk to them about their fees, but use a travel agent. It helps small business. So whoever that might be for you, just do that. But they can go online or they can call. If you have a placeholder, though, you have to transfer it within 30 days of when you get it. Otherwise, you won't be able to, your like new travel agent wouldn't be able to book that for you. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So October 31st is Platinum and Golden Oak members. If you are a Golden Oak Club member, feel free to call me. I'm happy to be your travel agent, drive to your house and help you with that booking if you'd like. Come on, Lake, you didn't even smile. It's my good joke. There you go. That's
Sorry.
Better. November 1st is for Gold Castaway Club members. And then those are for people that have sailed at least 5 times. Platinum have finished sailing 10 times. Silver and Disney Vacation Club members and Adventure Insiders are November 2nd. And so just to note, if you are DVC or if you have a previous ABD trip under your belt, you do not have to call ABD or Disney Vacation Club. You can book it with a travel agent and they can book for you. They just need your contact information of what your previous things were. Disney will verify that you've had that. So you can book on November 2nd as well. It just has to be after the phone lines open, which is 8 o'clock. And then the general public books all the way. So that was November 2nd, Thursday. The general public waits all the way to November 6th to book. And that is at 8 a.m. as well.
All right. Well, if you are planning on booking one of these sailings or one of them intrigues you and you are watching live as our Patreon members are, let us know what you're thinking about booking. We, funny enough, are probably looking at maybe a treasure cruise, which we've already seen before. But we're looking at something maybe around our anniversary. And there's lots and lots of options kind of crossing over our anniversary this year for these. So definitely some fun stuff to keep an eye on here.
And I am... Oh, go on.
I was going to say, we did have one question here. Liz asked, do we think they announced the Haunted Mansion Parlor bar as a last push for treasure sailings before this release? I mean, I think we typically, even with the Wish, we saw kind of information slowly coming through.
Katie Lake's spouse just joined this live stream and she's like, oh, hey, talking about me? So yes,
yep.
I have a couple of cruises planned for 2024 or one that we're going to book. So I'm going to give you those dates off air so that maybe you'll come on one of those cruises with my family. We love sailing with you.
Sailing with friends is fun.
Sailing with friends is so fun. It's always more expensive though, everybody. Just keep that in mind. I don't know what everybody else's budget is when they're not sailing with friends, but I definitely drink more and spend more and do more when I am with friends, which is super fun. It just, much more expensive. Like,
worth it though.
Totally worth it. So if you are not working with a travel agent, I would be happy to help you book your early 2025 cruise. You can reach me at Christy at packyourpixiedust.com, and you can go to my website, packyourpixiedust.com, and there's like a contact us section, contact me, and you could fill out that form there if you'd like, but reach out. When you reach out, if you're going to email me, I do need to know your Castaway Club level. I mean, I'll get it from you eventually if you have one, but so that I can put you and slot you in. My husband always does bookings with me in the morning so that we get everybody booked as soon as possible.
All right. And I don't have any additional information to add to that. So I think that is probably a good place to leave us off here. So thank you all so much for watching. Christy, thanks for joining -- making this show happen for us here.
Thank you, Lake, for coming on tonight. I know you had a busy day.
Absolutely. And we will talk to y'all soon. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.